Well, hello everybody. Danny back from Pecan Grove. Guys, we're here in the shop working on the Farmall cub. Ms. Wanda is canning like crazy, so I have the camera on a tripod. I'm trying to sit here and do a little bit of videoing about what's going on with the cub. Now, we did not get any video of us tearing anything apart, okay? This thing has been a challenge to get apart and get cleaned. It was really, really bad. So today, what I want to show you is replacing the rear main oil seal on the Farmall cub, and some things that maybe you should look for if you decide to do this yourself. And I might even go as far in this video as to go ahead and replace the oil pan gasket on it, because the oil pan we've got taken off of it right now. We have the rear main seal housing off of it, and we already have the rear main seal put in the housing, and I'm going to try to get it up here and show it to you. Now I've got all this cleaned up really nice now. I've put a new seal in the back of it, and this is the side right here that goes against the back of the engine housing, I guess you would call it. The crankshaft goes around through this right here. Now, what I didn't know when I took this apart is there is actually a sleeve inside this, and when I drove the old seal out, the sleeve came out with it. And that looks to me like a point that could leak oil. So I did put a little bit of gasket material that's made for oily surfaces back on that thing and drove that seal back in there, that spacer ring or whatever you want to call it, and before I drove in the new seal. Now make sure you put the seal in the right direction. The hollow part of the seal goes to the side that goes against the engine housing. Now when you take these off, one of the things that you want to look for is you want to be able to take a straight edge, and you want to lay this thing down flat like this here, and you want to take a straight edge and lay on top of it and drag it across it. And what you're looking for, and do it in a lot of different directions, keep turning this thing around and looking, what you want to make sure of is that someone hasn't over tightened this and warped it, because it's so narrow and so thin like this, it's very easy to warp these. And if it's warped, then you just have to purchase a new one, is what has to happen. Now I'm going to stop at this moment, and I'm going to move the camera around and show you the back of the tractor. And well, I'll tell you, before we do that, let me do this right here. This is the gasket that goes on the back of this housing. Now it is directional. The gasket is directional. It will only go in one direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some, this is called, let me see if I can get it up here and get it to focus. I don't know if it's going to focus or not. But this is called Gear Oil Gasket Maker. Now, it's made for places that comes in contact with oily surfaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the gasket material on the back side of this so that I can put the gasket on it, so that the gasket doesn't fall off while I'm trying to put it up there. In other words, it holds it in place, and it's not going to be stuck to the back of the block, but it will be stuck to this piece right here. In the event it ever has to be changed again, the gasket will be stuck to this and not to the back of the block, and when I take it off, I'll just be able to scrape it off of this, and I won't have to worry about trying to clean the back of the motor off. I'm trying to think of everything ahead of time. Now hopefully in my lifetime I won't have to go back into this. I have seen a few things about this once I got into it. I believe the engine has been rebuilt, and if I get a chance I'll show you why. It looks like it has new bearings and all in it. From looking from underneath it up into it, the bearings all look brand new in it. This gasket here had been replaced. Someone had changed the rear oil seal in it, and what happened, the reason I'm having to change it, is that when they put it in, they hit it with a hammer on the corner just a little bit and bent it, and I think that's where the leakage was coming from. I noticed the camshaft piece on the back of the engine has been replaced. The gasket and all has. So I feel like someone has overhauled this motor pretty recent on it, because I'm finding things that look like they're in too good a shape, let's say, to be a tractor that's not been taken care of over a period of years. So let me get this gasket material on this right here and get that gasket stuck to it. And I'll kind of show it to you here when I get through, so you can kind of get an idea about what or how I'm doing it. I don't believe, now I could be wrong about this, and if I am, someone can correct me, because I don't mind, you know, if I'm not right, I don't mind that. I don't believe this is under any kind of high pressure, literally, because there's no reason for it to be under pressure. You just have oil from the crankshaft being slung up in here on this and around it. There's none that I can see anyway, let me put it that way, reason for that to be. And you don't want to put a ton of gasket material on this, because this is kind of what I'm going to show you what it looks like now. This is what it looks like with the gasket material on it. It's a gray gasket material. Now I'm going to take this gasket and I want to stick it to the back of it here. And because I don't have any help with videoing, y'all are not going to get to see every little detail that I do, but I will show you what it looks like afterwards. Now these gaskets, when they make them, are not 100% perfect. That's why I'm putting the gasket material on it and trying to stick it to hold it in place until I actually get some bolts on it. Okay. This is what it looks like now with the gasket on it. Now I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but it is on there. Now I'm going to lay this to the side, reposition the camera, find my bolts, and we're going to see if we can't bolt this thing down. Okay, now I have you looking at the back of the engine right here. And right here is where it goes. Now if you want to check this back of this crankshaft to make sure there are no burrs on it or anything like that, if you can, it's good to take a piece of emery cloth, real fine emery cloth, and maybe brighten it up a little bit. That's what we've done here, to make sure that, and you want to make sure this surface right across here is really good and clean, and there's no gasket material or anything on there. I think I've got this. There's one little place right there. My fingers tells me there might be a little something touching it there. I just want to be sure. Get out my old trusty pocket knife, and yep, there's just a touch of gasket right there. Not much, but just a little bit. That's what you want to watch out for. You want to make sure it's really, really good and clean. Now that's just a little bit of rust right there. That's not gasket material. I have a gasket scraper. It's just over yonder, and I don't want to get up and get it right now. Okay, it looks like the rest of it is in excellent condition. All right. Now, I'm a clean freak, so when it comes to stuff like this. All right, let me get my piece up here. All right, we have our piece here now. And I have the bolts here. I'm going to try to put the top bolt in first, so it will kind of like just let it hang. And you want to be careful now when you push this over the rear of the crankshaft here. Make sure that it's a pretty good seat. Now if you have maybe some petroleum jelly or something like that, you could use that, but what I'm going to use right now is I have a little bit of grease here. I'm going to put just a touch of grease on this. Let me slide it back off of there. It's a good snug fit, but I'm going to take just a little bit of grease, and I'm going to touch the inside of this with it. Just a little bit around the inside of that seal in there where it touches the crankshaft at. I'm going to put just a little bit of grease on that. This is good clean grease. just so that's lubricated. I don't want it to be dry. Now, let's take this and try this one more time. Oh yeah, that feels a lot better going up on that crankshaft. Now, we can find that bolt hole up there. It's there somewhere. There we go, right there. We're gonna run that. That's got it held in place. Now you don't want to tighten it down. You want to make sure you get them all in there before you tighten anything down. And make sure all these bolts are good and clean and not all full of, don't want no dirt or anything like that in them. Now what I'm going to do is move down and get one of the lower ones in here. That'll tell me that my gasket is good and straight on there. Let's get the one on the other side. Let me make sure that it's okay. We got that one started. Wiping these bolts off. Even though I've cleaned them, I like to make sure there's no grit or anything in them. Yeah, that one started in there real nice. I believe that the cleaner you keep something, the less likely you are to have problems with it. When I was in college taking mechanicking, my instructor would make me wear white gloves when I took a carburetor. When I put a carburetor back together, I would have to wear white gloves. And he would test that thing to make sure that there was no trash in anything anywhere. He called it the white glove treatment. Now I'm gonna find me a ratchet here right quick, and we're gonna get this thing ratcheted on there. Now I'm just gonna lightly tighten it down just a little bit now, not much. Got my hydraulic lines in the way there. I have to ratchet this thing down. Remember guys, the secret to a good job is cleanliness. You see my hands? My hands are clean when I'm working on something like this. You don't want to be doing something with grease all over you. Now I did call and check with the tractor company, Birch Tractor Company. Mr. Brandon is a world of knowledge when it comes to these Farmalls. I asked him, was there a specific torque on this plate right here, and he said probably in the original day there was, but it's been since lost. He said so what they do is they just really snug it down good. I got that one, and I'm going to skip all the way down to the bottom one here. Then I'm going to come back to this one. Remember, these are just small bolts, so don't get too crank happy with it, because you will break them. And then if you break it, then you got to drill it out and redo it. Okay. Well, there we are, guys. That is as simple as it gets right there in installing and how to put the plate back on, some things to look for on installing the rear main oil seal. Now I'm going to see if we can't set up here, and I don't know how I'm going to get the camera positioned to do this, but I'd like to show installing the oil pan on it and seeing if we can't get that in a video, because I haven't really found anywhere where it shows anything up close in installing an oil pan under one of these Farmalls, because you have to, and in my opinion, now I could be wrong, but in my opinion, you have to put this on before you put the oil pan on in order to get the oil pan gasket not to leak, is the way I feel. Now I do feel underneath the bottom right here, there is, I mean, just a minute little bit of difference in the two plates there. I don't think it's enough to make a difference with the gasket and everything. I think it'll still seal fine. But I'm going to get the oil pan, I'm going to show it to you, and we're going to see if we can't figure out some way to set this camera up where you can get a kind of get a feel of the oil pan. I'd like to be able to show you up inside the engine, because lots of people have never actually seen up underneath the insides of these motors from the bottom side. So you'll have to bear with me. I'm going to try to do the best I can, guys. Okay, here we are, guys. I am trying to get this where I can show you guys what this is the oil, this is the pickup screen for the oil pump right here. This you're looking at on the other side over here, right over yonder, is the camshaft. It looks like it's brand new. This is the connecting rods. Let me see if I can get this thing where we can get some more light up under there. I can't really tell if it's showing up very well or not. This is the, well, you can't see if I take the light away for sure. There we go. That's the gears on the front of the motor, the connecting rods and everything up under it. I'm looking, there is some thrust bushings right there in the center. Thrust bearings, not bushings. They look brand new under it. The engine is very clean on the inside. It was not, the oil pump screen was not all, you know, gummed up or anything. The whole inside of the motor looks very, very clean. So I'm very pleased with that. Now, what I'm going to do is try to set this camera up where we can see putting the oil pan gasket and all on the bottom of this. Okay guys, here we are back. I have this is my oil pan. I have taken it, I've cleaned it down to the bare metal. She's been completely repainted, looks brand new. What you want to do, I use carburetor cleaner on the inside of this, to carburetor and choke cleaner. I sprayed it, cleaned it out. Wear glasses when you do this because it can get back in your eyes. I actually completely cleaned it out, and I buffed and cleaned the whole inside of the bottom of this pan back to where it's in its new condition again. Now what you want to do with your oil pan, or I do this, is I set it up and I take a straight edge and put it across where the bolts are at to make sure that none of them have been over tightened and dimpled out really, really bad. And if they are, you can take a ball peen hammer, a small ball peen hammer, and tap right around that bolt hole and kind of help flatten it back out. Just be careful not to be in the oil pan. Now, this is the gasket that you can order. It's a very thick gasket, as a matter of fact. What I like to do is lay it down on it to make sure the bolt holes all line up, and they do, that way or the other way, so it is not directional. So what I'm going to do now is take that same gear oil gasket maker, and I'm going to put it on the actual oil pan. I'm not going to put it on the block of the engine, because the worst thing you want to have to do is sit up under a motor and try to scrape it off of a block. It's a whole lot easier to get it off the oil pan if you try to get the gasket off. So I'm just going to put a thin layer of the gasket material on here. It'll take a couple of minutes to do this, so you'll have to bear with me there. And it doesn't have to be any, you don't want a big thick layer of stuff on here. Now a lot of people use silicone. I don't use silicone gasket maker because little pieces of that stuff will get off and get in the motor and stop things up. I'd rather use the gear oil gasket maker. It does so much better job, and it takes a very, very thin layer of it. You don't have to put it on very thick at all. And it's highly, it is very, I guess where I say it's not highly, but it's very tacky. So once you stick a gasket to it, it is pretty much stuck. I mean, it's there, and it's oil resistant. You don't have to worry about it when it comes. I'm getting my new oil pan all nasty with gasket stuff on my fingers. So let me get this kind of ran on around here, guys. And it's a whole lot easier to do this with the tractor already broke in half, because if you have to do this with the tractor still together, the rear of this oil pan actually sticks up in the bell housing, and it is an act of Congress to get those back 3 bolts out. The 2 outside ones is not that bad, but that one center one, I did not have a wiggler that would work in there. I didn't have anything that would work in there, not even a wrench. I couldn't even get to it. I actually ended up having to take an open end wrench and stick it up in there and maneuver that thing to get that out of there. Now we have the gasket material all on the thing here. I am going to be sticking this gasket to this so that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt it is actually held in place like it needs to be. Now comes the magic of me getting a camera in a position so that you all can see this being installed up under the tractor. I've got the camera in about as good a position as I think I can get it in. I'm probably not going to show the whole thing. I'm just going to show me putting the pan up here and trying to get a few bolts in it to hold it in place, because it may take me a little while and I don't want to have to just sit here with you guys let me figure out which way it goes here. Give me just a minute, because it'll only go one way. Oh yeah, here we go. You see, I'm going to use a little bit longer. There's 3 longer bolts here. I'm going to put them in the back here. Got another longer bolt back here. Trying to put these 3 long ones, I'm trying to put them in the back here. The rest of them are shorter bolts. I'm going to put them find a place here I can get it started. So no, you don't want to tighten none of these down until you get them all in. There we go. Make sure we got her all lined up before we ever start doing anything. Okay, we've got them all started now and got it lined up. I'm not going to leave the camera running while I do all this. You all understand. I'm just going to run them down. Just good hand tight. We're not going to over tighten them. And we'll pick up with the video after that. Here we are now. We're going to be installing the flywheel on here. Now, when you put the flywheel on, you're going to want to make sure, let me get the camera set just about right. You're going to want to make sure before you install it, you want to check the ring gear teeth around it to make sure that they are in good working order, and these are actually perfect. You want to check this surface right here where the clutch runs to make sure that it's not wore out. This one is actually a brand new flywheel somebody put on here. It has never even been ran enough to even wear the new grooves off of it, and the lip is still on it out here. You don't want the lip to be in, you'd rather it be out. Now, the flywheel is directional. It does have a pin on it here to help hold it in place when you put it up on there. And we're going to try to see if we can't get it. It's pretty heavy, so we're going to try to see if we can't get this thing over here and get it on that pin. We can get it kind of lined up there. Let me see if I can find that pin on it. Well, it may take me a second, guys, because it just falls right on there when you get it right. There we go. Now, that's made to hold that there in place. Now, I did question the tractor company, Birch Tractor Company, about the flywheel bolts. I asked them, do I need to put Loctite on them? And of course, they told me, said some people in the past have. They said they never have, and they've never had one come loose. So in all my years, I've never put Loctite on them. Now these did have some Loctite on them, which made it very difficult for me to get that out of there. So we're gonna try to see if we can't get these things. They should. Now I did run a tap down through the holes. I cleaned the threads out. They did have a lot of old dirt and grease and stuff like that in them. I did run the bolts on the wire wheel to clean them up, to make sure there was no issues with them, because I didn't want anything being hard to actually do here. Now, I have a new pilot shaft bearing coming for this tractor, and normally I would go ahead and just put it in there before I put the flywheel on. But I believe I can get it in there with the flywheel like that. Now the problem is, most people, this, I'll show it to you here in just a minute. This pilot shaft bearing was wore slam out. It was in really bad shape. The whole front end of the shaft could pick up and down in it. And I did get it out, but I think the reason it probably hadn't been changed is most people do not know how to change and take out a pilot shaft bearing. That's one of those things that if I hadn't learned it in school, I wouldn't have known how. And when I get all these run down here, I'll actually show you and tell you what actually transpires if you have to replace yours. It's not that hard to do. And you don't want to tighten one of these down before you actually get them all run down. Now these are fine thread bolts, and it does take a little while to get them. So you'll have to bear with me. We'll just have to do whatever we got to do here. But now these do have a torque on them. I did ask the tractor company about the torque on them, and they did tell me that yes, they do have a torque. So we'll talk about that in just a minute here. Some people just take an impact and run these back up on there. I do not recommend using an impact on these, because if you do and you ring it off in there, then you've got a problem. Now here is the actual pilot shaft bearing right here. This one is all mushroomed out around the top right here. It's wallered out pretty bad. When I stuck it on the input shaft, it just wallers around on it really, really bad. So I'm glad I did opt to order another one. Now I'm going to take just a moment, and I'm going to show you how to change and take out a pilot shaft bearing. In my shop here, I keep round steel stock like this. It's smooth, just cold roll steel. This one that I have here just happens to be the exact same size as that pilot shaft bearing is, and that's what you want. You want exactly the same size as the pilot shaft bearing. Now I don't have my tape measure right here with me. It's down on another project that I was doing, but I knew that it was going to be pretty close to the same size. Well, what you do is the pilot shaft bearing is stuck in the back of the crankshaft like that. Now what you do to take this out is you fill this thing full of a good heavy grease, and you fill it back, and you push as much grease in there as you can get in there till it's level with the front of it here when it's in the back of the crankshaft. And you take this rod like this right here, and you stick it in that, and you take a hammer and hit the end of that rod. Well, that grease causes a hydraulic action to take place in that crankshaft, and it will actually slide that bearing over that shaft like that. When you hit it with a hammer, it will actually force it out of the back of the crankshaft and onto your shaft here, and then you can take it out, and then you clean the grease out of the back of it. But that is how you change a pilot shaft bearing on the back of it. Now, back to the flywheel here. The flywheel, I called and got the actual torque on this. The torque on this is 45 pounds to 50 pounds, the book says, according to the tractor company. They said they do not go to 50 pounds. They keep it at 45 so that you don't run the risk of wringing a bolt off. They said at 45. They have never had one come out, and all you do is you just put this on here. Now you'll have to figure some way to keep the motor from turning there, but this, my torque wrench is set at 45, and you'll turn it down. I don't do it. I'll go ahead and get them all run down a little bit and get them even to about the same amount of pressure on them. I got to be really careful because the fan is, I don't want to hit the radiator up there because it's just laying in front of it, and it's actually hooked to the fan belt. I don't want to hit my radiator. Now I'm going to probably get me a screwdriver. I've got some bolts I'm going to stick in here, and I'm going to put me a screwdriver across this to keep that from turning. We'll stick one like right here. Now these are your bell housing bolts. I'll stick one like right here. I don't know if this rod here will actually work or not. Let me see. It might work across there. Let me get on one of these here and see if I can hold it with this, or if I'm gonna have to get something that's got a flatter. Hear that click? That tells you that you're at your proper torque. Now I am using a 6-point impact socket so that I don't have to worry about ringing or rounding a bolt off. Okay, I go back and check them again. And you got to realize this is a really long handle, so there's a lot of leverage there. All right, we've got them torqued down now to 45 foot-pounds, not inch-pounds, but foot-pounds. And guys, this is going to conclude this part of this, because I don't have the clutch pressure plate and throwout bearing and all that in here yet. That's still ordered, but that'll get us to this part of the video: installing the rear oil seal, the oil pan, and putting the flywheel back on the Farmall Cub. Thank you guys from Pecan Grove.